Dan, most people know you as the title of counselor, but today we want to know about the person. So I want to ask you this. When you hear the word leadership, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, not as a politician, but as a human when you hear leadership?
Well, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. We already talked about Mondays being a beautiful day outside, but maybe not my favorite day of the week. But as far as the what you had mentioned, I'm still getting used to the term counselor. It's going
Yes.
on almost my fourth year, but I'm always just Dan. If you go back further, then I was Danny. Anybody that know
Danny.
my family or relatives. So when it comes to leadership, obviously this is a big role now in politics and government, but I think if you go back further, I think we'll get into it. I did start a company 25, 30 years ago, and then always obviously there's some leadership qualities you need there to lead and to hire and work cooperatively with people. And if I want to go back even further, I guess my funny story was once getting in trouble. My dad was the principal of the high school, or vice principal of the high school I grew up in, a
Of
smaller town.
your high school? You went to high school when your dad was the principal?
Vice principal, yes, the
Oy
disciplinarian.
vey.
Three boys, and all of us McLeans were there as well. But I was in junior high school. I think you get dropped off on the bus,
Mhm.
and then you have to stay in school because I lived on a farm. But we did, the four of my buddies, a team of 4 or 5 guys, we escaped, went to the store, got candy and stuff, and come back. And the moral of the story is that the principal of the junior high school took us down to see my dad because it was a shop day. And anyways, I'm talking a long story, but he said, your son, he's the one, he's the leader of this group. So that was my first leadership role, being the leader of my little gang of rascals. But we were just kids. But anyway, just an amusing anecdote of leadership. But that was my first time I heard it being said that I was a leader.
You got it earmarked by shenanigans and your crew. I love it.
Sometimes you just have to, bend the rules.
Listen, I know that you've lived in Calgary for over 2 decades. And when you think about Calgary and what you've come to know and what you've come to love, what are the values that stand out most to you? And then how have they influenced how you lead?
Well, Calgary is just the city itself is one of the nicest, most beautiful cities on the planet because of its entrepreneurial spirit, the leadership. I mean, just what this city has done for the world, just not in leadership of energy. I love that it's not just the energy of oil and gas or renewable energies, but it's a positive entrepreneurial spirit. And everywhere you go, and I think one of my joys of being in an elected position is I get to meet a lot of these leaders, the people that have built this city,
Yeah.
with just big, massive companies that just worked hard, entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's what Calgary is. I've always liked about it. It just has that optimism and that, breath of fresh air. I love Calgary.
We're kind of mavericks, aren't we?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah, and I think we should embrace that and just keep
Yes.
pushing that. And we've had Ralph Klein. I think was one of my heroes in the old days as a mayor of Calgary, and then as a province. And the same thing, a bit of a maverick. Straight talk,
Common
get things
sense.
done. Not just a Yahoo attitude, but just a get her done type of spirit. And I think that's kind of what Calgary embraces.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What outside of policy or outside of politics, what's one thing that you think that most people get wrong about leadership?
Outside of politics, well, I guess you can have bad leaders out there, and
Yeah.
in politics, sometimes, unfortunately, you end up with the cream does not always rise to the top because there's such a thing as vote splitting. You've seen a lot of different cases where maybe the very best candidate didn't win, maybe because of a vote split, maybe because of external factors. The most recent example of that would be someone like Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
He was, ahead by huge margins. The country was just begging for change after 10 years of liberal policies that were extremely unpopular, extremely unpopular prime minister. I fall into that. That group was not happy at all. And then all of a sudden, we have an external factor like the president of the United States talking a tariff war, doing things for his country that affect ours. And then, boom, all of a sudden, it turns everything upside down, and we end up with a leader that I think, and I hope I'm wrong,
Hmm.
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think it's going to be just a lot more of the same, where we're going to see a lot more taxation, a lot more spending, and inflation, and a lot of just bad policies. So
Yeah.
sometimes leadership gets it wrong.
It does. It does. It does. Let's talk a little bit about you grew up on a farm. So
That's
good farm values outside of Camrose. How did that environment shape your work, shape your ethics, your sense of responsibility, and even frankly your idea of success? Because you've been successful in multiple different arenas so far in your young life.
Well, thank you. There's failures in there. With every success, there's a failure. That's how you learn.
That is how you
uh,
learn.
but the farm,
Yeah.
and it comes without saying. You learn work ethics. It just was taken, for granted. I just can't. It boggles the mind sometimes when I see kids working age sitting at home, or even then into their 20s and 30s, still living with their parents. I know there's affordability issues, but I was expected before that bus came at 7 o'clock that you were out and you did your chores.
Yeah.
There was always the chores, and then when you got back off, back home, there was always work to do. If your parents said, get out there and mow that lawn, or get out there and bring in a chicken and chop its head off, because that's what we're having for supper. Yeah, you learn it's a different way of upbringing. But I have never met, very rarely not met somebody from like that farm background that wasn't a hard worker. And if you're going to succeed in life, again, if you're sitting on a couch and complaining, I mean, there's jobs out there. There always has been. And I
Mhm.
worked, while I was going to school, I always had a job. When I was going to college, I had a job. It's, hard work is, yeah, you got to embrace that. And the sooner you do that, the better. So at a young age, growing up in a farm, I embrace that as, one of the best times of my life for sure.
Did you have an animal farm or did you have like a grain farm? What kind of farm did you grow up on?
So totally mixed use. Like I said, my dad was a teacher, vice
Yep.
principal, but we had cows, chickens, cats, dogs, a few horses, a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
Like quarter section of land, not big to farm that. And then he bought like a business in town, a chicken hatchery, and my
Okay.
dad was always entrepreneurial too. So there was chores to do there as well. But those ones I actually got paid for. You know, stocking shelves and stuff like that. But so it was a bit of everything. Some farm boys like there's there'll be big, huge operations. The life of the small town, the smaller farmer is
Mhm.
disappearing rapidly. Where it's just bigger
Yes.
and bigger operations that just keep gobbling up the land, and it's a little sad to see, to be successful, to live off like a half a section, even a section of land nowadays, and farm it, and that's your sole source of work and income. You don't see that very often anymore.
No, you don't. It's a little bit of a lost art, isn't it?
It is, and it's it's stressful for the farming, for community for sure.
Mhm.
But it's all the different pressures in the world. But that's another thing. What really brings me to Calgary, because we have a lot of different things going on here, technology industry, agriculture, but it's a big one though. We've got
It
the oil and
is.
gas, but the ag industry and our stampede and our embracing the rodeo, and
Hmm.
that's coming up. I'm
It
kind
is.
of looking forward to it. I mean, people come from all over the world, and one of the fun things I like doing is that there's Aggie days before that, or just you go into the different pavilions where you'll see all the young kids with their animals and their horses or their cows in the 4-H. I mean, that's just yeah.
Did you do 4-H when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
The
love
cow that I spent all year, a little heifer to get trained so you could lead it around on a rope, and it was perfect. Got away and ran away at our town rodeo, and took off all the parade grounds and all the rodeo grounds, and so I didn't win any prizes. But yeah,
A
there's
for
a failure.
effort, though.
There's, but yeah, no, 4-H was fun.
And for those that are listening that have never had to teach a cow to follow a lead, it is not as easy as it might look.
Nope, it's not a
They have
dog.
a completely different brain. They
Yeah,
don't
they don't.
think like us. You want to go one way, they want to go another way, they're going the other way.
Sounds like you have some experience with that.
Just a little bit. I'm privileged to say that I've straddled both sides of the world in terms of being city life. So born and raised in the city, but I have family that are fifth generation farmers near Calgary. So in Trochu, Three Hills, Sundre, Olds.
Yeah, well, that's great grain farming area. And harvest time, I mean, I was still, like I said, I have relatives that you get out and you drive the grain truck and you go till all hours of the night and up in the morning and you're
Yeah,
hoping you can dodge bad weather. But it's a fun time. It's a real community type of thing too. Everybody helps out. The neighbors help out. A family gets together, and we're missing a lot of that in the big city. Sad
yeah,
to say, that's one thing we do miss. But again, just never forget, the people in the smaller towns and the farmers that are out there because they feed us.
they do. They do. And it's so important. So important. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Camrose, being on the farm, and then founding McLean Golf. How does farm and golf make sense?
Well, it was a bit of a story, but the genesis of McLean Golf worked for 10 years. I worked at a GM dealership in Wetaskiwin. When you start off on the floor as a salesperson, you work your way up to assistant manager, run the used car department, run the business office. You learn every aspect because that's what, if I'm going to do something, I want to get to the top,
Mhm.
eventually then own the dang place. But you have to be born into a car dealership, pretty much, or family. It just seems that way again, where it's just a whole bigger, Wheaton has 20, 30 of them. So when the opportunity came that I was ready and didn't get a branch office, I opened my own, and that did it differently. Instead of in a car dealership, you'd have new, used parts, sales, fleets. I did it with golf cars. And so I bought some land at the busy of two major highways, 13 and 21 outside of Edmonton, about
Yeah.
40 acres, put up a shop, put out some horse trailers, some stock trailers, some flat decks. But the golf cars were the ones that went up. They flew off the shelves like crazy. Everybody wanted one for the farm or for the campground. And then I had to find a place to bring these in. I find a supplier, which was out of the Pacific Northwest. And they were the large Easy Go golf car distributor. Easy
Okay.
Go is the number one golf car in the world. They're one of the biggest ones in North America. And they said, we'd love for you. You're buying hundreds and hundreds of used cars. Why don't you be our distributor up in Canada? And I said, fantastic. But they said, in Vancouver, of course, because we're in Portland. I said, well, I'm 1,000 miles away from there. Americans don't know our geography at all.
Not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all. I have friends in Toronto. Do you know them? No.
No, no. But when they offered me Vancouver, I said, that's fantastic, but I want all of Alberta and all of BC, which the Calgary company had the distribution rights for all that territory. A big company here in Oak Creek Golf and Turf, they're called. They're huge, and they do golf and irrigation and turf equipment. But I got the rights away for Easy Go, and then we just built up from there. We had to open a few locations, but we did it again with parts, service, fleet sales to the golf courses. They buy 100 at a time. Spruce Meadows was one of my key accounts. We started putting cars in there where they used to rent. And then we had a huge rental fleet that if you ever saw big trucks going down the road, double decker trucks or whatever, full of golf cars, that was probably me. We supplied the Olympics in 2010. That was a huge bid that took 2 years, but a couple hundred, 250 units we had to get of all sorts of sizes, all across, Whistler, everywhere. So anything at
Incredible.
the lake, you want to have a buggy that's all lifted up with a big stereo and big wheels, we could do that too. So it was fun, a lot of work. And then in the winter, a little slow. So then you've got to manage your revenue. You learn how to budget because you just can't go out and tax somebody just increase your income. I mean, you have to, you learn a thing or two about budgets and working, and 20 some years of that. When we sold it and I was getting bored, I said, well, let's just get into politics because I've always loved politics. I've always followed it, whether it's global, national, international politics, civic politics. But you can only yell at the TV for so long when you have to then just say, I'm going to go do something myself. That's where we are today.
That's where you are today. When was the moment in sort of that trajectory when you thought to yourself, I'm actually building something bigger than just me?
Oh, it's thrilling. It's frustrating, but it can be totally thrilling when you actually are putting your finger on the lever. And the favorite example for that is what I call the ridiculous bag bylaw, where the city had instituted a bylaw where that you drove through the McDonald's and you didn't get a bag. You had to have your
Mhm.
burger in your hand, or pay
Mhm.
50 cents, or ask for napkins at a restaurant, or just everything about it was
Why did
just
we do that? Why did we do that? That was so weird.
people
Weird.
hated it. I voted
Weird.
against it, but it got passed because I was not in the council majority, but fought hard behind the scenes. And of course, public outcry has its has its impact, and we
Mhm.
had to bring it back for reconsideration to have that scrapped. But I led that one and fought that one hard, and we won. And
Yes.
so I can say, man, that felt really really good. You did something, and I hope people remember that every time they get a paper bag. But
Yeah.
so that was a victory, and other times you lose. So, but it's part of the game.
Very much so. Well, let's talk a little bit about the game. Let's talk a little bit about stepping into the public life. So, what made you walk away from successful business? You said you got bored and really decided to enter what I believe to be one of the most publicly scrutinized, like nobody wins, you're never going to make everybody happy, arenas, which is politics.
Yeah, it wasn't so much bored. See, business evolves too. You can look, sometimes you put your passion into it after 10, 15 years. And in my case, the impetus of where things changed was when the markets crashed in 2008, 9, 10, and if you're bringing up all your
Yeah.
product, golf cars, every golf car is pretty much made in Augusta, Georgia. And you're dealing on their financing, and these big global companies were all going under, killing
Mm,
your floor plans. The bank stopped lending, and you're in the middle of a huge expansion, and so you really had to do a course correct. And so I became a little disillusioned after that. And then by the time, I'm not a young guy, so we did fine, and it was time to look at doing something different. We'd sold the company, and this was always my passion. So maybe I'll back that up a bit. It's something I think I always wanted to do
yeah.
when I was a young kid, but it's a tough business, like you
Mhm.
were saying, for young people with young families. My quick story there, I tell it often. My father ran for the federal government for the nomination for the Progressive Conservatives back when I was a teenager. He
So it's
lost by two.
really in your blood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Literally in your blood.
Yeah, it's whether it's like I said, a prime minister or president, or I'd like to you think I've read a lot of books on it, but my father lost the nomination by 20 votes. I was,
Huh.
you said a young kid. I was crying, and he says, "Son, it's probably for the best. I have my career. I have my lovely wife, my beautiful family. I've got the farm things that maybe later on, when I, a little older, a little more experienced, I might do it again." And that stuck with me because
Mm,
I've seen too many people with, their lives can be ruined with their scrutiny, or you've got to stop, and maybe you're only in politics for 1 or 2 terms, and that could really mess up a career trajectory. So, to me, the timing was right. Something I always wanted to do, and then
excellent.
after like you're 55, and you say, okay, well, I've done this chapter, this chapter. The kids are growing up. Let's try politics. Sell the
Yeah.
company. I took about a year off and kind of was down south where the winter anyways, and that's where I got bored just by taking the winter off. Can you imagine doing this?
Oh.
My father always said, you retire, you expire. You've got to do something. So
Mhm.
something I really enjoy, takes a lot of time and energy, and yeah, it's and I'm afforded a lot of the ability to do that because
Yeah.
of the rest is the past. Now we look forward.
Yeah. What surprised you the most, or still surprises you the most, about the difference between political leadership and business leadership? Are there differences? Do you experience the differences?
Well, the biggest one is it's a business leadership. You're playing with your money.
Mhm.
In the government, I'm paying with the taxpayers' money. I
Yes.
have an office budget. I have a staff. Like I'm looking after my ward 13 is over 100,000 people. So it's like I'm a mayor of one of the largest cities in the province, but you have to look after all the needs, the safety, the sidewalks, and so you have a staff of three that I usually work with. But and even myself, my paycheck and their paycheck is just this it's through an office budget, a taxpayer's budget. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of leaders in the provincial they lose track of that.
Hmm.
They spend because it's not their money. And that's why you
Hmm.
see it at the bottom line. Well, we spend a little too much on that, or they'll spend things on frivolous things. Whereas I'm a very frugal guy with my Scottish heritage. And so when it came down to a truck, say we've got a bunch of trucks and this one's getting a little older. Do I go buy a brand new one? No, I'm going to push it a little bit further or refurbish it. Do I get the top of the line truck with the leather and the sunroof and all the nicest possible top line trailer equipment? No, I'm going to find the best deal on that. And you'll see government, it's always the best. And it's always they're not spending their own money. That's just so important. The difference between the public and private sector.
So important. So important. If you had to finish this sentence, how would you finish it? Ready? Leadership is,
You put me on the spot. I don't know if we're in it.
it's a good question.
Leadership is responsibility. At the
Oh,
end of the day, it's 100% responsibility that if you make a bad decision, then you're impacting not just yourself or
yeah.
say your employees, but you're impacting, maybe in this case, a whole city or a whole ward. When we passed blanket rezoning across the city, and that was the most contentious item that's come to City Hall, I think, in history, with
Mhm.
weeks of public hearing, thousands of people writing in, hundreds of people showing up saying, I do not want this. There's got to be a better way. And our leadership said, no, we're going to stuff it down your throats. I don't care what you say. We're not listening, and we're going to do it anyways. And it's impacted the city broadly. And
Mhm.
so all I hear about is this you'll see a picture on social media, and it's a sixplex where there used to be one house, but it's sixplex with six basement suites. Now, in the back of that building, there is 12 times 3, 36 bins because every person, every place gets their own three bins,
Mhm.
garbage bins, recycling, compost. And so now it's just a gong show in the back alley. Then there's just everywhere you go, there's hundreds of these bins. Garbage trucks can't get in and out of this. There's no parking. That's a consequence of leadership. We ditched our responsibility to the citizens, all just because we thought it was probably better the developers would make more money, the city makes more money off of taxes, and the hell with it. So that was one big failure, what I see as leadership. And
Mhm.
I can turn that around because there is an election coming up in October. And if we elect new leadership, well, and if I had my druthers and I'm here with some like minded councillors, then we would overturn that. And again, be responsible with that position of power that you elected us to do.
Mhm. Well, and it's so complex because every decision that you make, it's like pulling a ball on a yar on a or pulling a string off of a ball of yarn.
Well, exactly. Look at that. Just again, the blanket rezoning.
Yeah.
And you see that maybe is not a bad idea because it does belong in some areas next to a transit station or in a big wide corner where there's lots of access in and out. But then the ball is string then because you've made it so it used to have to come to council through a land use, and then we could look at it, we could debate it, people could come to public hearing. But
Hmm.
now that it's blanket, it could happen in the middle of a block, deep in the middle, and all of a sudden where there's a really bunch of beautiful trees, and it just knocked down, and there goes your shade, there goes your parking, and this old lady McGillicuddy who loves her garden
Yeah.
is dead now.
Yep.
She's people looking out the window at her in her living room. So, yeah, it has consequences.
Oh, and you have to make decisions that are not going to please anybody, like any leadership position does. So how do you stay grounded, Dan, when you know that you have some people disagreeing with you, and sometimes really loudly and sometimes really rudely?
You better grow a thick skin if you're going to get into
Mhm.
politics, and it just can't let it bother you.
Hmm.
Because when everybody that says they don't read their own reviews or they don't look at the comment section, well, good on you if you do. But most of, I mean, I do. You want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And some people can be straight up rude, and there's
Yeah.
some that are just straight trolls. And you just that's water off a duck's back because they're the people that complain about everything. You can't
Yeah.
please them for anything. But you better have strong convictions and a thick skin
Mhm.
because that's what it requires now. Maybe more now than ever. You don't know how we changed that. The genie's out of the bottle, but here's where we are, where we're
Well,
at. Censoring people is not the solution because that's
no.
been brought forward where they can bring in rules and people can't say this online and you're not allowed to say that word. Politicians shouldn't be able to say that. I'm very much a free speech absolutist unless you're coming out with true hate,
Yeah.
child pornography, things like that. But if you want to come on and call me a bunch of nasty words because I'm calling out social disorder and you think I'm a bad guy, um, you take the good with the bad.
Totally.
There's a
Totally.
lot more good than bad is what I'm getting so far, so I'm going to keep going the way I'm going.
Yes, yes. And it's so amplified because you're such a public figure.
Well, that's the other thing. You could stay in the background, not
Yep.
make any noise. One counselor told me he's not running this time around, but he says if you just stay quiet, you go along to get along, things will be a lot easier around here for you. When he's
That's
talking about
not good
this,
leadership, though.
yeah, and you'll get reelected over and over and over again. You'll see that you can, but
Oh,
that's just I just can't. It's not in my DNA. I can't do that.
no. No. Well, let's talk about good decisions. How do you personally define good decisions in a leadership role? Is it about results? Is it about principles? Is it about public approval? How do you make how do you make good decisions, and how do you advocate for good decisions being made?
Good question, because it's a bit of all of those things in that little mix that you put forward. The first thing, obviously, you have to have some core ethical background or moral ethics. I mean, I think most people I would put in that category. And you don't just do things just to get reelected, or sometimes you can put out social media posts sometimes just to inflame the situation or to get some responses. And I think we're all guilty of that.
Hmm.
But key key thing you have to do and where you get your direction and to make your decisions is from the people. It's so simple. You just listen. And so you have to really go, you read your emails. I mean, I've heard some counselors don't even respond to their emails because they don't want to put up with the heat on some of the issues. We respond to every single one of them. So when I walk in, I was at a community picnic this weekend, and we
Hmm.
have a little booth out there, and a band, and it's community associations are the best. They're all volunteers, and I go to a lot of them, and you just listen to the people. Everybody wants to talk to you, and I'm at a lot of events, and they will tell you what they think, and then you take your direction from the majority. That's really has to be it. Even if at the very core, I think maybe this decision's wrong. You have to listen to the people.
Yeah.
It's just that's what guides me.
I love that. I love that. Let me ask you about accountability, because you are a big proponent for holding yourself and others accountable in as much as you can. What does accountability look like for you? Not just publicly, but privately as well. Like, who checks you? Who do you trust to tell you the truth in your world?
Well, accountability comes at the polls. I mean, that at the end of the day, that's the true accountability where people are just not going to elect you because they don't like your decisions that you've made. I
Mhm.
think sometimes some people, like in this case, we have like half of council not running again because I think they know they would the accountability they'd get trounced, and so they're just going to maybe avoid that. So you know that's the true arbiter of how well you're doing is if
Yes.
you get reelected. So I mean that's what democracy is all about. But at the same time, if going back to the leadership core, you are still elected as a leader, and sometimes you do have to make tough decisions
Mhm.
that, of course, not everybody's going to agree with. And what you think, because we may have a lot more information regarding this subject than, well, in most all cases, I do, than compared to say, the one to Joe Public. So there's tough decisions that have to be made, but
Mhm.
generally, I side with the people.
How many times, because I know I did this to you, because I had the courage to come up to you at an event, because I've been following you for a long time, had the courage to come up and shake your hand and say, thank you so very much for how you show up and how you lead. How many times have you heard a constituent that's not yours, but a Calgary constituent come to you and say, I wish I could move to Ward 13? Because I know I said that. How many times do you hear that? Probably a
Uh, I'm not lying. A lot. I get
Mhm.
it a lot, and in our emails too, because
Mhm.
we do. I respond to everything. Maybe not, if it's not me, it's my team, or we keep
Yeah.
everybody in the loop. So I think I've got a pretty good pulse. I'm downtown all the time now. Like I'm a farm boy. I've lived in the suburbs, and that's who I represent. But I know this city really, really well. And like you said, whether I'm in the Northeast at a Eid event or whether I'm down in the town, at a Chinese cultural center, people are all the same. They just want better bang for their buck.
Yeah.
That's they just feel their taxes are going up all the time, and maybe their services, well, their taxes are going up, the services are going down. But I think the biggest one of all, and again, people just they don't mind paying taxes if we get the services. And the
Yeah.
city's getting better, but it's the public safety, the social disorder, and the approach that we're taking to that, where the police seem to be handcuffed and not, they don't have the laws of the support to do their job. The province is really stepping it up now. That's making some changes, but I just it's not acceptable to me for when I'm walking down the street and I've got to step over. I don't care if it's human waste or needles or somebody that's barking at the moon. I don't know if they're generally harmless, but it's still just in a civilized, decent society that should not be allowed to happen. And so that's what I hear a lot from it. People love the fact that I'm standing up for that. So I hear a lot of that.
Oh, I want to ask you, I'd love to ask you this. Certainly as business leaders, one of the things that drives a lot of really great folks nuts is the things that linger. And sometimes it's really hard in larger organizations to make an impact because it's like I've heard it like described as trying to steer the Titanic in a different way. Well, here you've got a much larger landscape, which is the city. How do you handle things that linger or that don't move as quickly as you want them to, or seem to be stuck in like the babble effect of conversation versus solutions? How do you temper the balance between the things that linger and moving towards a solution?
That's a good point, and one I've given a lot of thought to.
Yeah.
And for me, it's come down to the culture. It's just one word. The culture at City Hall and in governments in general is they're just a big bureaucracy, and you've seen them double in
Mhm.
like the last 10 years. It's insane. I've seen over 2,000 employees. I think we have, a 10-15% increase in our full-time employees just
Mhm.
since I've been here. That's a lot, and they're all getting paid 100 and some $1,000 a year. So the culture is just in their own best interest of growth. We know best, and that needs to change. Again, it's not even the tax and pay and spend. The one big culture, and it's leaning way, way far to the left, where we're looking at every social issue. I can't fix climate change and the global temperature of the earth by raising my property taxes. That's not our purview. We have police and safety and snow removal when we bring up all sorts of different, like I said, issues that are not in our wheelhouse. That we
Yes.
need to just get away from that. Even mental health and addictions, which is really important. That's a provincial gig. I mean, they're downloading it onto us, but we're spending tens of millions of dollars on that as well.
Mhm.
So it's the culture where they just, you know how it is. If someone says, I'm going to open up an anti-racism committee, that maybe just spews out and tells us all how racist we are. I don't think that's really helping the situation. And then it spawns into 3 or 4 different iterations out of itself. And a lot of these may be volunteer positions, but I just think government as a whole has been infected by what I would call the ideological far left issues. Some
Mhm.
would call them woke.
Mhm.
The woke people hate you calling that. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, that's kind of what it is. We're turning that around. Like you said, it's a big shift that's got to self-correct itself. But that would be one of my key goals, is just working with administration and say, you have this big monolith of an administration bureaucracy. Where can we streamline things, and where can we get more focused on just the things that we can provide, and just not keep adding and growing bigger and bigger and bigger?
Because we just become more sludgy, not only we become more sludgy as a city, it just becomes more burdensome as opposed to being able to move forward with progress.
Well, just in our plan, we want to build houses, and it's
Yes.
always, I mean, and so, but to get a development permit, in the old days, you talk to people and they, 30, 60, 90 days, you're ready to go and build. Now sometimes it's a year or two. That planner, and we're really speeding, we're moving in the right direction. So I don't want to be all negative all the time. Some of these processes are changed, but there's different levels from the head management, and then there's directors, and then there's, planners, and there's just different levels and different files where I think we could maybe just say, I want development permits out the door in 30, 60 days, or we could put
Mm.
caps and force the administration to do certain things. And the way it works is the city council, we give direction to administration.
Mm.
Past, I've seen administration kind of, a lot of people, there's a strong theory and some evidence to that administration runs city council, and it's supposed to be the other way around. But if you need council to be strong, lots of true leaders that go in and demand change, and that starts at the top.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Let's talk a little bit about what surprised you the most when it comes to leading a space full of compromising agendas or competing agendas.
There's
Competing
nothing wrong with
agendas.
that. There's nothing wrong with compromise. I mean, that's kind of the good deal. They always say in the private sector is when nobody likes it.
Yeah.
When if I'm talking or I'm negotiating a deal and I had to give up this, but they had to give up that, we met in the middle, then we're probably pretty good. So compromise is necessary. But again, we just, not to harp too much on this exact city council that we have right now, but people are looking. It's one of the, well, the most unpopular council and mayor we've ever had. But
Ever.
it's because it's been fractious. There's been one set on that side that has been unwilling to compromise. It's only when the straw that broke the camel's back, like on the bag bylaw, or the other one was they canceled Canada Day fireworks because it was deemed racist. And the Chinese love fireworks, First Nations, we all love fireworks, and that took a public outcry. And they
Yes.
were stubborn, and they dug in and they dug in until finally they said, "Oh, okay, we messed up here," and then they changed it. There's a few examples of that goes around, but yeah, we need more collaboration, more compromise. And again, I think that's this last council was a little too ideological and they're a little too set in their ways, and they had a majority, and so they kind of plowed through. So we need to change that in
Yes.
October.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Tell me about a moment in the last couple years where you felt the weight of leadership and questioned if you were getting it right. I feel like I feel like the farm values have stuck with you for so long. So you probably have a great deal of self-reflection already in you. What could I have done differently? What did this look like? I should have done this. What have you ever felt the weight of leadership and questioned yourself? And then how did you work through that?
Well, not, I don't look in the past very often, and they always say, don't spend too much time because
Yep.
you can't change it.
No,
You
you
can
can't.
reflect on it and try to do better. But I guess the one issue that is top of mind and I think really important, and we've talked about it a bit already today, what was just some of the social disorder and mental health and addiction. So there's the Sheldon Schumer Center that's
Mhm.
downtown, and they're offering, supervised consumption. And before that, they were actually talking about safe supply, actually giving, and they're doing this in BC. Here's some fentanyl, or even at the Sheldon Schumer, and they say, well, it's here to watch you do so you don't overdose. So there's so much we could talk about in this space. Mainly, I'm talking about safety. People around that area don't like it
Mhm.
being there, but
Mhm.
it's finding the balance, because a lot of these people are genuinely just good people that had some really severe mental health problems, maybe something in their family, some trauma. So I always, to balance that, that's the one thing where I question. I mean, because part of me just wants to go in and just sweep up the streets and put them all behind a door that locks and then give them their help. The problem is working on a compassionate care, because letting them just enabling them just to sit out in the street and say, hey, taking away their rights isn't fair. And I see that there's a lot of people that are just, I talk to them, there's some decent people here, but it's what is the right way? Is it am I being too heavy handed on that?
Mhm.
Or is it maybe a little bit more of a compromise where, uh, the farm boy in me just says, there's no way in the world that you tell people it's okay to do drugs.
Yes.
Even if pot is legal, but I get tired of smelling that stuff everywhere I go. And then we
Mhm.
encourage people that okay, pot is legal, and then they just make it stronger and stronger all the time in the store, and
Mhm.
then they go out in the private sector, out in the the black market, and it's even stronger because they mix in the fentanyl and the you know the heroin. I mean, all these things
Right.
that's happening.
Mm.
So it's just one of those ones. Is like, what's the right approach? Because I get it when people are very passionate with that issue, and they'll come up and talk to me and think I'm a total asshole because I have no understanding or compassion. And safe supply works, and this is and supervised consumption works, and I'm like, okay, I'll listen, and I will. So I want to have an open mind, but that's the toughest one right now. That's the one issue that's
Really?
facing us right now in all these major cities, and in a lot of different opinions. So yeah, that's what I think about.
Mm. Has there been a moment where someone else's leadership taught you exactly what not to do?
Oh yeah, and you're going to tell me, yeah, there's some like our current, what's been good leadership,
Yeah.
exemplary leadership. I told you I loved Ralph Klein, but Premier Smith, the way
Mhm.
she's standing up for this city and for our province, and how eloquent she is, and how she knows everything about every issue. And I've had lots of conversations. I mean, that's impressive leadership.
It
The
is.
opposite then, what I've seen, um, would be the Nenshi provincially, where everything is a dog whistle and everything is, it's just pure and utter arrogance. And I'm just going to say that out loud. I don't care if it gets published because
Yep.
as a mayor, I think he was that way.
Yeah.
And then on city council, I've seen some leadership here as well, where they just like, I know best. How
Hmm.
dare you? Even if the people are so much against Glenmore Landing, again, another project in Ward 11 in the city, the big business. I mean, there's a lot of things I could talk about where that deal just stunk
Yep.
and it was being pushed through anyways. And I wonder why. You're not representing your people. You're not representing the city itself. Like we have to really, uh, sometimes again, whether it's an ideological bent
Hmm.
or sort of pure arrogance that I know best, you know, it's just that's I've seen enough of that, and that's not good.
Do you think that in with anything, I believe that power corrupts or has the ability to corrupt. But if you look at someone like Nenshi, who's a previous mayor of ours and now running for uh, provincial leadership, do you think he was always that way, or do you see a growing into what he has become?
There's two sides to the coin there, and then I might have to leave here after this. But
Yes.
the I've seen some people that you do change.
Yeah.
Even myself sometimes. I mean, it just you can say, well, hold on a bit here. Like, don't get too on your high horse because I mean that could be taken out from underneath you in any election or any point. But and again, not to because I don't want to get into Nancy Hammer Slam Fest or Notley or whatever. I'm obviously leaning forward to the conservative side of things, but Rachel Notley, actually, I think she believed what she was saying.
Yeah.
She was an effective leader. She was passionate. She was smart. And I actually, whether I disagreed or not, I thought she was a pretty damn good leader. If you go back and talk to people where Nahid Nenshi was a professor at Mount Royal, it seems like that attitude and opinions and high regard of themselves has kind of been consistent. So I'll leave
Uh,
it at that. Where other
yeah.
people can change, other people will
Yes.
change, and you should be able to change with the pulse of the people. But yeah, I'm seeing a big change now with for our mayor Gondek
Mm.
was really one way,
Now
and
they.
the worst polls, and all of a sudden it's changing around a little bit. So
Mhm.
you know, some people change. Is it real or is it political? Oh, you could be the judge of that.
And that's where the call to leadership really matters.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, lightning round before I let you go. Ready? 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 One book or person that has shaped you.
Well, the book I always go back to, and I'm not going to say the Bible. That sounds like a really easy way to come out. I think Trump said that one time. The
Nothing
first
wrong with
book
the
I
Bible,
really,
my friend. Nothing wrong with it.
oh, no, no, I've read the Bible. When I was a young kid, my mother gave me the first book, though, was the Stephen King, The Stand. It was about a 1,200 pager, and it was deep and it was thick. And that one made a lasting impression of all of his books. The other one was Leon Uris, Exodus, and it was talking
Okay.
about World War II and the Exodus of the Jews and the creation of the state of Israel. And Leon Uris, is all of his books are good, but yeah, I'm an avid reader. But those were two real big ones, I guess, would be this The Stand and then in Exodus.
What is something you would say to your 30-year-old self?
Don't get married at 19.
And last but not least, Dan McLean, what's next for you, business, professionally or personally? What's next?
Another term. I said I would do 2 terms regardless. You do not, I don't going to, I wouldn't do it probably, I said it, I wouldn't do a third term, but get elected in Ward 13 if they'll have me, and hopefully serve with a whole bunch of more like-minded people that we can turn the ship around. So that's what's next. And we're going to hopefully do it.
Beautiful. Dan, thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being the man that you are and showing up for yourself and for your community. So, on behalf of all Calgarians, we thank you.
Thank you, Allison. It was my pleasure. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye
Okay,
for now.
bye-bye.